say, oh yeah, I love life, man. This pot from my new dealer, man, this shit is sick. No, the marijuana isn't sick. In fact, it will probably make you quite sick with continued use. Little annoyances like that infuriate me. Just talk normally, please. They don't really love life. They don't really have a purpose or a name. People who think that pop can make you happy are wrong. They're crazy. It was these kinds of things, seeing idiots falsely happy, that led me on a journey. One that ends today. When I was younger, I went to try and find the meaning of life. My search didn't last long, mostly because I kept coming back to this sense of self-fulfillment, which I had already eliminated as too cliché when I had created my list of things that are definitely not the meaning of life a few minutes earlier. So I decided that sex was the second best choice. It's what I had wanted to choose all along. Now, here I was, lying in bed, alone, deciding what the meaning of life was, something I didn't know one thing about. I legitimately knew more about the inner workings of tangerine trees than sex. From that moment on, I decided that perfection was the best way to be. Be a god, and you will achieve the meaning of life. I began to dress nicely and try to socialize with people while staying focused on grades. I changed my life to achieve the meaning of life. And to my credit, it worked. I did achieve the meaning of life in the back of my parents' pickup van with a girl whose name I don't remember, probably will never remember, and who I never saw again. Oh well. Now the problem presents itself. What does one do when one has achieved the meaning of life? My solution was finding a permanent friend, and so I went and married a beautiful woman named Elise. Elise was perfect. Smart, athletic, funny, with a side that desired the meaning of life in the same way that I did. I proposed 2 months after I started dating her, which was 3 months after we met. We were young, we were stupid. We ran around fulfilling the meaning of life constantly. We went on our honeymoon to Marseille, and exactly 3 months after tying the knot, we agreed to start trying to bring a new life into the world. A world where everything was happy. Everything was sweet. A world where water was wine, where vegetables were chocolate, where people were angels. And we succeeded. 1 month after we began trying, Elise became pregnant, and 9 months after that, our beautiful daughter, Madison, was born. Beautiful as she was, Madison was born a killer. My wife died, bringing her daughter into the world. The irony. The meaning of life had extinguished what I loved most. I raised Madison the best that any single father with no higher education could. I raised her fondly, told her that she was beautiful, and I loved her. I really did. She may have killed my wife, but Madison became the light in front, obscuring the shattered light she had left when she was born. However, as time went on, that light that was Madison dimmed. Whereas before I had wished that everyone could find the meaning of life, where everyone could be eternally happy, I now didn't want any of that for her. Madison was my light, my joy, and so I did the opposite of what I had wanted. No fulfillment of life for her. No drugs, no sex, and a 9 p.m. curfew hit Madison at the age of 13. Now, children are a funny lot. They're like springs. You exert pressure on a spring, you need to keep that pressure going, or else it will recoil and extend to a greater size than what you started with. If you try and stop them from living life, they'll try and not only live life, they'll try and ruin yours. Such was the case with Madison. On her 16th birthday, I went to wake Madison for school. The past year had been hard on her. Her old friends had moved on, and she had started hanging out with older kids. Kids with a bad reputation. Kids she knew would piss me off. Where before in her room posters of the Jonas Brothers and the Backstreet Boys had reigned, now depressing quotes and drawings lined the wall. She would come home at ungodly hours, scream at me for not caring about her, and run upstairs to her room. She had closed up to me, but that was just a teenage thing. As a result, today was going to be the day where we rebuilt the bridges. Today was the day when she became the new meaning of my life. Today was the day I added new light to the fuel of Madison. I had gotten up early and made pizza and cake to pack for her lunch. I had to run to the 24-hour CVS at 5:30 a.m. and bought some happy birthday balloons. The beep from the waffles in the oven remains in my head to this day. Slow and rhythmic, crying out for attention. I first heard it as I was walking up the stairs to wake Madison. I had to let her get an extra 10 minutes of sleep with the intention of driving her into school. I walked in and it was a little cold. She had left the window open a crack. She was lying face down, and I hated having to wake her. I gently started to shake her, gradually increasing my roughness. I took a couple of steps back and smiled wryly to myself. I thought of her younger birthdays when she would be up at 5 a.m. at the foot of my bed, begging me to get up. I always would. We would make the waffles together. We didn't have an oven at this point, so we would have pizza the night before, and I would freeze it for her then for lunch the next day. It was at this moment I saw my watch. It was 6:37:41. Definitely time for her to wake up. I leaned back over to continue shaking her, and it was then I saw the bottles. 2 bottles of pills, both empty, were cradled in her outstretched arms. Disbelief began to creep into the darkest corners of my mind. I turned her over, and she was white. Her eyes were closed, shut tight, her mouth in a grimace. Her hands were bleeding from her own nails cutting up the flesh as she formed fists. I really shook her now, desperately, slapping her face, screaming her name, "Madison! Madison!" Her name seemed to reverberate around the room, ghostly sounds bouncing off the walls, landing blow upon my mind. I sunk to my knees, tears streaming down freely from my eyes. My world spun around and around. My beautiful girl was dead. The coroner's report listed the time of death at 4:31 a.m. from a mix of alcohol, marijuana, OxyContin, and Xanax. She had taken more pills than anyone would have been taking for recreational use. She hadn't gone out the night before, indicating it couldn't have been at a party. My daughter had killed herself on her birthday. I lay at home for 5 days. Not eating, not sleeping. I lost my job. The lights in my life were out. Fate had flipped its lethal switch. There is no light, no hope, no nothing. All the things I loved the most left. I've had my lights extinguished. You see, I achieved the meaning of life, and yet life gives me nothing to live for in return. To all the parents who think they have found the meaning of life, I'm here to let you in on a little secret. Life has no winning combination. Life has no golden key. Everything you have, everything you cherish, everything you love is temporary, and it will die. You are too. One day you are going to die. People will be sad, but eventually they'll die as well, and the cycle will repeat. No light stays bright forever. In front of me is a beautiful brick structure. But as with all establishments of education, it carries an air of sadness, of imprisonment. White paint is just beginning to peel at the corners of the windows, and I can see a teacher pointing to the blackboard behind them. I cradle my light switch like a child, its cold steel beckoning to me. This is where we raise kids to kill themselves. This is where my daughter was told she wasn't good enough. This was where my daughter's death sentence was signed. These kids simply do not deserve to live. I think back on all the times I had had light. I had always had light, since I had decided on the first meaning of life back when I was 17. When life has no purpose, though, that's when people turn the lights out.